Let us pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be now and always acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. I have a confession to make, and I actually admitted this to Allison and Gerald just before the service today. Sometimes, occasionally, at Christmas time, I feel like a Grinch. Now, you don't have to confess your Grinchiness here. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands or anything. But I find it interesting that, like the Grinch this week, last week we looked at Charlie Brown Christmas. I find it interesting how popular these kinds of stories are at Christmas. They give us this sort of anti-hero who questions for us what it all means and what it's all about, and feels somewhat at odds with the season. It suggests to me that maybe I'm not the only one who has those Grinchy moments at Christmas. Now, whereas last week Charlie Brown just sort of had a case of the blues, the Grinch, we're told, actually hates Christmas. Hates everything about Christmas. And we have this wonderful vision of the Grinch way on top of his mountain of bitterness and judgment, pointing a finger down in condemnation on Whoville and everything that he perceives that Christmas is about for them. So what does the Grinch hate about Christmas? Well, the Grinch hates the tinsel and the trappings and the noise and probably the feeling of being left out of all that's going on. Now, in those moments where I feel like I don't totally relate to all of the hype and busyness of Christmas, I find that a really great antidote to that Grinchiness is church and Christian worship at this time of year, because it takes us about 1,000,000 miles away from the tinsel and trappings. So tonight's gospel story comes to us like midway point through Advent. And it starts in a jail where John the Baptist has been locked up. I mean, we couldn't get any further away from Whoville. And John the Baptist sends his disciples to Jesus with this question, this burning question. Are you the Messiah? Or do we still have to wait? And underneath that question is a thinly veiled command. Like, if you are the Messiah, then prove it. And underneath that command is maybe another yearning. If you're the Messiah, then why does the world still feel so broken? Now, this is a burning question, as I said, for John the Baptist, for his disciples, for all of the people of Jesus' day. They are all on pins and needles waiting for a Messiah. But they don't just want some guy who's going to say, I'm the Messiah. They want the world to be different. They want to be freed from Roman oppression. They want to have a sense of justice and peace in the world. They want to have their needs provided for. They want to feel like God is in charge and the world is a different place. We're maybe not on pins and needles in the same way looking for the Messiah today. And yet the question that John the Baptist's disciples ask Jesus is also a question that takes us right into the heart of our preparations for Christmas. What does it all mean So what? If Jesus is the Messiah and we're celebrating the birth of the Messiah, then so what? And how is the world different because of Jesus? Now listen to Jesus' answer. Jesus' answer is really interesting. His answer is, look, listen. Then look again and listen again. Pay attention. Where do you see the sick being healed? Where do you see the lonely welcomed? Where do you see the hungry fed? Where do you see new life in the midst of death? Where do you see light in darkness? Where do you see good news proclaimed to the poor? Because wherever you see that, the kingdom of God has arrived. That's the center of Jesus' message. The kingdom of God is here. We don't have to wait. The kingdom of God, the presence, the power of God is all around us. But we need to wake up and pay attention and look again. And once we do that, once we hear Jesus' call to wake up, then there's another call that follows on the heels of that, which is to follow, to become a partner in all that God is doing. The kingdom of God is here, and you are part of it. So that question of so what, the answer has to involve you. And it has to involve me. We have to be part of how the world is different because of the birth of Jesus. Now, if we've just kind of built a bridge between the Grinch and the gospel for tonight, let's toddle back along that bridge and look at the Grinch again. Now, the Grinch takes us to Whoville. And I don't know how up you all are on your Dr. Seuss, but actually the Whos of Whoville were featured in a Dr. Seuss book from a couple of years before the Grinch. It's from the book 14 Years of Who. Do you guys remember this story? Well, Whoville, it turns out, is a teeny tiny place. It's so tiny that compared to human beings, it's just like a speck, a barely visible speck on a clover. You can barely even see Whoville. It's so tiny, and the people in Whoville are so tiny. And the story of Horton Hears a Who is about Horton the elephant, who's so tuned in to the world around him that he becomes aware of Whoville. And he goes through the entire book trying to convince all of the other animals in the animal kingdom to care about protecting and guarding the people of Whoville, even though they can't see them. And the mantra for Horton through this whole story is, a person is a person, no matter how small. And he finally convinces everybody to care about these teeny tiny little Whos. Well, if we look at the Grinch, and if you look at that little clip that I showed, what you find out is that these tiny little people, the Whos, they got it all along. Like, it's a misleading title, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, because what we find out is that Christmas can't be stolen from people who get it. They got it all along. And there isn't any moment in this Christmas movie, like Charlie Brown last week, where we explicitly hear the Christian message. But we definitely have an Advent moment on the top of Mount Crumpet at the end, when the Grinch is just about to throw Christmas, or try to throw Christmas, over the side of the mountain. And he has that moment of waking up and seeing what these small, beautiful people have been doing all along. Seeing that the mystery and the magic and the generosity of Christmas, the welcome of Christmas, has been open to him all along. It's not that he brings Christmas back. It's that his eyes open and he comes down from that mountain of bitterness and disappointment and judgment in order to be part of this small and beautiful thing that's been happening all along. The Grinch and our Advent Gospel suggest a couple of jobs to us. As Christians preparing for Christmas and trying to stay away from being Grinchy. One of our jobs is always to look and then look again and look again. To try and keep our Advent eyes. To look for the presence and power of God happening all around us and sometimes even within us. Which is, of course, our second job. Is to be part of what God is doing. To be part of that healing and welcome and generosity and beauty and love offered to the world. But I'm going to say that the Grinch maybe gives us as people of faith a third job in Advent, getting ready for Christmas. Because you know what? Sometimes it's hard to keep our Advent eyes. And sometimes maybe you, like me, end up feeling a little bit Grinchy. And you're not quite sure how to pull yourself out of it. What is it that gives the Grinch those Advent eyes? What pulls him out of his Grinchiness and allows his heart to expand? It's a song of praise. It's a song of praise lifted up by people who have kind of had everything taken away from them. And they still find the capacity to sing that song of beauty and praise together. So I'm going to suggest that maybe our third job in getting ready for Christmas as people of faith is to be willing to sing our songs of praise. To be willing to lift our voices in gratitude and to believe in the possibility that we could be a means by which somebody else gets their Advent eyes back and gets to be something other than a Grinch at